Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2024 PGA Championship Initial Research Show. First off, it is Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers out there, especially mine. Happy Mother's Day to Mom. And I hope you hooligans spent some time with your mothers today. So if you haven't, make sure you stop this video, call her up, tell her you love her. We're here for the PGA Championship. It's going to be an exciting tournament. Essentially in my backyard, I'm about 20 minutes away from Valhalla Golf Course. Hopefully you had a very good double tournament week with the Wells Fargo and Myrtle Beach. Wells Fargo was pretty mediocre for me. A decent one. Nothing great. Nothing terrible. Decent with the Rory McIlroy one and done. So that certainly helped. But Myrtle Beach was quite a disaster, if I'm being honest. So we are going to try and get right for the PGA Championship. So let's do it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytics tool out there for your money. There are a lot of great analytic tools out there, no doubt about that. I simply believe Fantasy National is the best. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all of the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where every week I post research around the tournament and prior winners, some patterns that those winners portray leading into their win. So if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and my top player usage in the DFS contests I play. You have seen all of that for both tournaments last week as well. So if you want to see those pieces of information for this week and every week, give me a follow over at X. Lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle is in the description. He writes a very good article called The Fringe. It's a great way to start your week of preparation. He continues to update you with his own version of his research throughout the week. So go show him some support. Follow him over on social media, because if you do, you're going to be able to join us in his Substack chat every Wednesday night as we continue the DFS talk after calls and the DFS Tactics show. And we've been doing some contests together, some single entry contests. And so following him is going to be another way you are going to be able to interact with us. And then lastly, we are live. Chat is open. Want to hear from you all, and including all of the success that you had at the Wells Fargo and or the Myrtle Beach. Did you have Chris Goddard? Did you have Rory at the Wells Fargo? How were your DFS contests? And then moving forward to Valhalla, are you aware of all the changes to the golf course, which we'll go over this evening? Who's your early favorite? All of that good stuff for the PGA Championship. So let's do our initial research for the 2024 PGA Championship. And we start customarily on a Sunday evening over the GCSAA tournament fact sheet. As stated before, a little special for me. Valhalla has seen the PGA Championship a few times. I was not nearly into golf as I am now, so it's a little bit more special for me. We are in Louisville, Kentucky, at Valhalla Golf Club. Again, it's special for me because I am about 20 minutes away from the golf course. Valhalla is a Jack Nicklaus design, so we might be able to take a look at some architect information in Fantasy National on some Jack Nicklaus designs. But in 2021 specifically, they did a lot of resurfacing around teeing grounds. There are brand new tees on 4 holes. They've lengthened several holes. It has gone through a fairly significant change since 2014, where coincidentally Rory won the PGA Championship. So we are not going to go into the Fantasy National course breakdown because the course has changed so very much. Gabe was able to locate the official scorecard, so I did make the hole composition chart for us in Microsoft Excel. Nothing to do with proximities due to the changes of the golf course, but we can talk through it a little bit. But a lot of the changes were into the teeing grounds and resurfaced the fairways from bent to zoysia. So these fairways are now zoysia grass. It is supposed to be more playable throughout all the entirety of the year. If you are familiar with the Midwest and Great Lakes area, we get some pretty wild weather changes on a day-to-day basis, really. And Zoysia is much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Adaptable, I guess, to changing weather patterns. It also takes a lot less water and pesticides and whatnot to maintain. So they did do a lot of renovation and resurfacing in these past few years. Valhalla, as it stands today, is a very long par 71, measuring 7,609 yards. Third longest course on tour by total yardage or by the raw yardage. Second longest when you account for par. So this is a par 71. We are going to have 4 par 3s and 3 par 5s. You see the stimp meter at 13. The PGA of America would love to have lightning fast greens. I don't know how much the weather is going to cooperate with that, and we'll talk about the weather starting tomorrow, but there is a lot of rain in the forecast. But there's a look at a little bit of the tournament setup for Valhalla. The greens are only 5,000 square feet. These are very small greens by PGA Tour standards. Average green size on the PGA Tour is about 6,000 square feet. So 5,000 here at Valhalla. The fairways pretty darn narrow. Lots and lots of rough. And it's going to be very, very difficult. As you would imagine, it is a major championship. The rough is fescue and a bluegrass mix at 4 inches long. I mean, that is just deep. Very difficult to play out of. You see, we talked about all of the changes to the grass and the agronomy, going from bent to zoysia approaches, fairways, teeing grounds. But the greens themselves have stayed bent. The greens are pure bent. A little bit more in terms of some numbers around Valhalla. There are 7 holes with water in play. Let's see. In 2021 was the change from bent to zoysia for sustainability, playability. Talked about that. If we want to get a little bit deeper in terms of the specific changes, the fairway renovation, this talks about, if you want to pause the video, this talks about why the change from bent to zoysia, talking about sustainability, not needing as much water, pesticides, and whatnot. However, what we're probably going to be most focused on is these championship tees that have been added to the course. Hole number 1 has added 38 yards since it was last seen in 2014. So now plays 484 yards. Hole 12 has added 27 yards. It is now 494. Hole 13, that tee was actually lowered. Hole 14 added 37 yards, making it a 254-yard par 3. And then hole 18 is now a 570-yard par 5, adding 28 yards. So there's a look at a few of the changes around Valhalla Golf Club since it was last seen, and that is why we are not going to cover Valhalla in terms of a course breakdown in Fantasy National. Again, this is a Jack Nicklaus design, so we could look at some architect information. We are on pure bent grass greens. Don't get confused throughout the week when you hear about the change to zoysia. The greens are still bent. The fairways and the teeing grounds approaches have been changed to zoysia, but the greens are still bent. The rough is kept extremely long, as you would expect from the PGA of America and a PGA Championship. Going to be very difficult, very long par 71 with small greens and 7 holes with water in play. So there's a look at Valhalla from a GCSA tournament fact sheet. Before we go to Fantasy National, let's jump to Microsoft Excel. As I mentioned, I did make the the whole composition chart. And I know this says per pro visualizer. I just keep the same format. This is from the official scorecard. And if you're a subscriber to Gabe's article, he posted or gave the official scorecard in his article. So that is where these yardages are coming from. We do have a mid-length par 3. It's about 185 to 190. And then the other par 3s are all 208 yards or above. We have 2 from 200 to 225. And the aforementioned 254 precisely yard par 3 that was lengthened with a new tee. We do have 2 short par 4s at Valhalla, measuring under 400 yards. 2 fairly short ones from 400 to 450. Majority of our par 4s fall between 450 and 500, and there are 2 very long and difficult par 4s measuring over 500. And then every single par 5, thanks to the lengthening of the 18th, every single par 5 on the scorecard falls between 550 and 600. And you can see that as I swivel out of the way there. So there's a look at your complete whole composition chart. Your 4 par 3s, your 11 par 4s, which 5 of the 11 fall from 450 to 500, and 2, or at least I know of 1, that still measures in the 440 range. So I would imagine on any given day, half or more of our par 5s are going to fall from 450 to 500. We still do have 2 very long par 4s measuring over 500 yards, and then all 3 par 5s from 550 to 600. So I did want to give you the whole composition chart, since we are not going to be covering that tonight, considering they still have 2014's Valhalla in Fantasy National. Okay, now with that, we will move to Fantasy National and the players in the field this week. From the tournaments that happened this past week, only Chris Gotterup gained an entry into the PGA Championship with his win. Rory, being already qualified and whatnot, there was not another one to be given out there. So in 2024, and of course I don't believe that the Wells Fargo is in here just yet. No. So in 2024, leading up to last week, our top performers in the field this week: Scotty, Xander, Wyndham Clark, Alex Noren, Billy Horschel, Hideki, Sahith Theegala, Akshay Bhatia, Tom Hoge, and Siwoo Kim. This, of course, will change thanks to the performance of the Wells Fargo, which isn't in Fantasy National just yet. It will be by tomorrow. We're going to dig in deep to the data tomorrow in the Data Dive show, talking about off the tee and approach around the green and where all those strokes gained come in. But in terms of strokes gained, let's take a look at off the tee. Yeah, let's do all 4 of the major shot types in terms of just the 2024 season, and then we'll start breaking it down just a little bit tonight. Like I said, we'll do a lot of the digging tomorrow. So in 2024, with no other filters, just kind of your best off the tee performers in general in 2024: Scotty, Keith Mitchell, Alejandro Tosti. I don't believe Kevin Yu's in. I could be incorrect with that. I don't think he is in. Rory, Xander, Minwoo Lee, Siwoo Kim, Ludwig Aubert, Chris Kirk, and Stefan Jaeger are our top 10 in terms of off the tee. We look at approach: Scotty, Tom Hoge, Corey Connors, Tony Finau, Bhatia, Lowry, Jake Knapp, Lucas Glover, Siwoo Kim, and Aaron Rai. Around the green, going to have some factor because these greens are going to be very difficult to hit. Hideki, Mackenzie Hughes, Scotty Scheffler, Stefan Jaeger, Ben Griffin, Lucas Glover, Alex Noren, Denny McCarthy, Taylor Moore, and JT Poston. Again, I do not believe S.H. Kim qualified. I think it would have had to have been somebody who already was qualified from the Myrtle Beach Classic for him to get in. Because Goddard was not already qualified, they did extend an invite, which knocked S.H. Kim out, I believe. We're going to hold off on putting until we do some other things here. We'll take a step back. Let's take a look at difficult rounds relative to par, because this is the PGA Championship. Almost every single round at a PGA Championship is difficult. So our top total performers when rounds have been difficult the past 2 years. Those players, come on, are Scotty Scheffler, Rory, Wyndham Clark, Cam Smith, Will Zalatoris, Tommy Fleetwood, Xander, Victor, Terrell Hatton, and Patrick Cantlay. Absolutely could look at off the tee when it's difficult. Scotty, Rory, Cantlay, Cam, Young, Keith Mitchell, your top 5. Zalatoris, Victor, Gary Woodland, Siwoo Kim, and Bryson are your top 10 in terms of off the tee when it's difficult. I also don't mind looking at around the green when it's difficult. Scotty, Tommy Fleetwood, Stephen Yeager, J-Day, Hideki, Fitzpatrick, Padraig Harrington, Brendan Todd, Chris Kirk, and Matt Wallace. We also know that this is a very long course, over 7,600 yards. So when on long courses, our top total performers, Scotty, Max Homa, Akshay Bhatia, Xander, Wyndham Clark, Sung Jae, Terrell Hatton, John Rahm, Ludwig Aubert, and Sahith Theegala. And let's go ahead and take a look at some Jack Nicklaus designs. That could be useful. I don't know how many he's going to have. So we have Muirfield, of course, where we'll be in June, the Memorial Tournament. The Nicklaus Tournament course, which is part of the rotation at the American Express. So we don't get a lot of data from there, but it is part of the Rota. PGA National, which used to be host of the Honda, or it still is the host of the tournament. It used to be the Honda, it was called the Cognizant, I believe, this year. So those are the only 3 courses that are making up this sample size. So it's a very small sample size, but for what it's worth, your top performers on Jack Nicklaus designs in the past couple of years: Eric Cole, Siwoo Kim, Scotty, Sam Burns, Patrick Cantlay, John Rahm, Denny McCarthy, Jordan Spieth, Joaquin Niemann, and Rory. Okay, let's clear all those filters. Let's go ahead and look at bent grass greens. And again, my guess is that they are wanting to be lightning. With the amount of rain that is in the forecast, I'm going to go ahead and add the fast filter. So at least, I know for a fact they're going to be at least fast. My guess is that they want them just lightning, but you can't control the weather. So in the past 2 years, on fast and lightning bent greens, our top performers are Denny McCarthy, Seabez, JT Poston, Keegan Bradley, Brendan Todd, Victor Hovland, Harris English, Taylor Montgomery, Wyndham Clark, and Terrell Hatton. Let's see. We could maybe take a look at a couple other things here. Let's take a look at fairways and greens. Let's take a look at maybe greens or maybe driving distance, because distance is going to be a pretty decent factor, I think, especially if we get the rain that we're supposed to. The course is going to be a little bit more soft. We definitely want to see we're going to put some emphasis on distance. So we'll take a look at this in a couple of different ways. Your top distance players in 2024, been on Wyndham Clark, Rory, Minwoo Lee, Toasty, Ludwig Aubert, Vincent Norman, Keith Mitchell, Jake Knapp, and Gary Woodland. Top greens players this calendar year: Scheffler, Connors, Noren, Finau, Mitchell, Rye, Perez, or Victor Perez, Patrick Rogers, Xander, and Ben On. And then if we take a look at a couple of these things in other ways, definitely would want to look at greens when it's difficult. Yeah. So let's do last 2 years. Definitely want to look at greens. Maybe distance as well, but your top greens gained players when rounds have been difficult to par: Scotty Scheffler, John Rahm, Xander, Morikawa, Finau, Cam Young, Wyndham Clark, Will Zalatoris, Joaquin Niemann, and Patrick Cantlay. And then I think the only other thing we're going to take a little bit more of a scrutinized view of, let's go into the par fours, because I do feel comfortable stating that the majority of our par fours are going to fall from this 450 to 500 range here. So this calendar year, our top performers, whoa, that is odd. Oh, sorry, I had clicked it the wrong way. Our top par 4 performers from 450 to 500 yards: Victor, Hideki, Scotty Scheffler, Akshay Bhatia, Xander, Rory, Bryson DeChambeau, Tyrrell Hatton, Patrick Cantlay, and Patrick Reed. All right. With that, because we normally would go to the tournament history tab, we can do maybe a quick look at it, but I've brought all of this over to Microsoft Excel. So, your top strokes gained total performer in PGA Championships in the past 5 years. No surprise, it's Brooks. He's won twice in the past 5 years. He's won more than that, obviously, in terms of PGA Championships. He's also your defending champion. Justin Thomas is high up here, having won recently as well. Justin Rose and Rory. Scotty, who has missed one cut, but otherwise has finished with 3 top 10s. Shane Lowry has always been pretty good. Again, when pars are good scores, you want to think about Shane Lowry. Xander, very solid. 3 top 20s, a top 10, 1 missed cut. Victor, DJ. Surprising that Thomas is not as high up here as I thought. Okay, so he had a missed cut, and then last year was pretty middling, but still 3 for 4. Let's see. Some others of note here, maybe some live players. You've got top one being DJ, 2 runner-ups. He has struggled the past 3 years. Patrick Reed, somebody to always think about in very difficult circumstances. Bryson, much the same. He certainly has the length to compete at these very long courses. Hatton, solid. John Rahm, no surprise. Cam Smith. So there's some of your top performers historically at the PGA Championship. The other way around, of course, you have your historical champions and your PGA professionals. Players like Tyler Collett, of course, Michael Block now being the most famous one. Some other players here like Tom Kim actually has not been very good at the PGA Championship at all. 0 for 3. Mav McNeely, 1 for 3. Pretty darn poor. Bobby Mack, 3 for 4, but very negative in terms of strokes gained total. Nothing to be excited about in terms of finishes, even with those 3 made cuts. Both Højgaards are here. So Rasmus, 1 for 2. Nick Taylor, 0 for 2. Andrew Putnam, 1 for 3. Coming down here more towards the more field average. Wyndham Clark, actually 1 for 3 in terms of PGA Championships. Mackenzie Hughes, 1 for 4. Taylor Montgomery, 2 for 5. Not very good. JT Poston, 3 for 4, but much like Bobby Mack up here, just nothing inspiring in terms of a finish. So there's a look at some of the players who have not played well over the years at PGA Championships. With that, to back up that data, we'll go to the early look file. And again, this is gathering performance at every single PGA championship going back to 2012. That's just as far back as Fantasy National goes. So you see Will Zalatoris actually has the best average finish. He has only played twice, but has averaged fifth place finish. Very, very good with the irons. Very good off the tee. Good with putting, actually. And basically field average. Eric Cole was very good at last year's PGA Championship. I don't think this is going to be a very good fit for him this year. Brooks, no surprise, no explanation needed. Justin Rose has been very solid. Surprisingly, Grayson Murray has actually played one PGA Championship and it was pretty darn well. Colin, Rory, Scheffler, Hideki. Let's take out the players that have only... Gosh dang it, I wanted to filter, not a sort. Let's take out the players that have only played it once or twice. I want to see those who have played several PGA Championships, what they seem to be doing well at these. And I understand that the courses are different. Some emphasize different skill sets, but PGA Championships generally are long. They're generally very difficult. They're always very difficult. So I think it might be worthwhile to just kind of get a big picture view of what plays well at a PGA Championship. And again, we will go dig deep into the data tomorrow night for Valhalla. But you see, anyone who has averaged a top, I was going to say 35, but that's not enough players. So average a top 40. This is 17 players. Only one of them is negative and off the tee. That's generally a very big part of the PGA Championship. You see Brooks, one of the best. Cantley's actually been very, very good off the tee as well. But only one player negative in terms of off the tee. You see he's actually just been putting very well. And his irons have been pretty good, to be fair to him, Victor Paris. But as you should expect, and if you didn't, we're gonna bring you up to speed here. Every single player that's averaged the top 40 has been positive in approach. And in fact, every single player who has played multiple PGA Championships who has averaged the top 50 is positive in strokes gained approach. It's just, and this is why I emphasize a lot why I prefer approach-based players, why I prefer ball strikers, because I truly feel like that is the skill set that is most conducive for sustained success in the PGA Tour. So strokes gained approach, a major facet this week. Around the green's actually been fairly important. You don't have as big numbers, as high raw numbers in here. Few more players negative, but it's still not to be overlooked because these greens are going to be very difficult to hit. So you definitely going to have a very tidy chipping and around the green game. Putting as well. Look at that. Every single player inside or averaging a top 40 or better has been positive in putting as well. Average putting at PGA Championships. Moving into the driving and greens, like distance is going to be a thing. I don't want to overstate it, but there's a reason why players like Brennan, you don't see players like Brennan Todd up here. Partly why, my guess is why Tom Kim has struggled. These guys can move it off the tee. They move it. Brooks. I mean, yes, Rose is getting up there a little bit in age, but he can still move it off the tee a little bit. Morikawa has generally been elite with his irons, so he can get away with being more field average in terms of distance. But Rory, Scheffler, Hideki, Victor, even J-Day, Justin Thomas, these guys move it off the tee. Distance is a factor. You see someone like Cam Davis, who's only played it 3 times, but he's still 3 for 3 in making the cut at the PGA Championship. Distance matters. So we're going to be targeting bombers this week. Absolutely. We're going to have some emphasis on distance. Good drives gained is also something we might want to look at. You see the performance there in good drives gained, but it's more probably the greens because not a single player negative in greens gained. And in fact, only one in the top 50 is negative in terms of greens gained. It's a big factor to hit these greens in regulation, to have relatively stress-free 2 putts for par. That's going to get you a lot. That's going to gain you a lot in a PGA Championship, is to have pars. So definitely greens is going to be a decent factor. Scoring, yeah, if you're making birdies, sure, but you got players like Cantlay, Molinari, Matt Wallace, even that they're negative in birdies gained. Look at the performance and the bogeys avoided. You got to avoid bogeys. You just got to make pars somehow. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time looking at bogey avoidance as well and see who the best bogey avoiders are. I know courses are different, so I don't want to go too heavy into the 3s, 4s, and 5s, but in terms of success, generally speaking, at PGA Championships, for those who finish in the top 40, these par 3s, about a 1.5 on average. Look at all the green and big numbers in the par 4s. This is a 4.1. The par 5s, 1.3. So, again, much like Quail Hollow last week, a lot of emphasis in par 4s, distance, greens, difficulty, so bogey avoidance, much like that, really. And then for proximity, I know there's a lot of solid performances in here in terms of total procs. These greens are small, so I don't know how much total procs is really going to matter for Valhalla. Some places it can, some PGA Championships it can matter if the greens are big. I don't know, the data's compelling, so I'd be interested maybe checking out a couple of prior PGA Championships tomorrow in my research and give you an idea of what I see in terms of proximity. First thought, I don't think I'm going to do a whole lot with proximity, but I could be wrong. We could be looking at something that we need to look at, but at least at first thought, I don't see much in it. Again, a lot in the ball striking. I mean, really all 4 shot types we're going to be looking at. We're going to make sure we have in the mixed condition model. Going to definitely be looking at some distance. Greens are going to be an important factor. Bogey avoidance is going to be a pretty darn big factor as well. We can do a sneak peek, I guess, of the patterns of winners, I guess. Of course, we'll do a lot of this tomorrow as well. But, Brooks only played one event last year before the PGA Championship. But look at the performance in the Masters of the champions when the PGA was moved to May. More specifically, sorry, wrong one. So there, Masters, that's 2020, sorry. Masters. So last year, Brooks, runner-up at the Masters, then wins the PGA. Justin Thomas, his win at Southern Hills in Oklahoma, top 10 the Masters that year. Now, Phil, a little bit different. He was already 50, but even he had a fairly solid Masters. He did top 25 the Masters. And then 2020 being the year that it was, we're going to kind of skip that one. And then Brooks, runner-up at the Masters. So there's a lot of very good performance at the Masters, at least. And that's the kind of the first thing that stood out. I'll definitely be doing some more research tomorrow around this and posting it to social media, so be on the lookout for that. And I'm only going back to 2019 because that's when the PGA Championship moved to May. Because it historically used to be in the summer, early August or late July. So only going back to 2019. But that's the first thing that kind of stood out, was performance at the Masters and how well these players played. Of course, Brooks and JT, positive in distance. Phil Mickelson was hit and miss, but look, he was still pretty much positive in distance. And then Brooks, obviously, very positive in distance as well. What you don't see is a lot of red in terms of iron play, except for maybe field. He might be a slight outlier here, but even so, other than Wells Fargo, I mean, his irons had been pretty darn solid leading into the PGA Championship at Kiowa that year. Brooks, 2019. He came off a 5, gaining 5 strokes on approach and another 4 off the tee. So, ball striking, again, I seem to harp on it a lot, but I wanted to shout that out pretty clearly. So, because we're still kind of short on, we have quite a bit of time. It's been a shorter show. Let's just kind of take a look at the Masters from this year and see some of the players that perhaps top 20 and see who might be a fit. So obviously Scotty, Ludwig Ober, Colin Morikawa, Max Homa, this was his best performance in a major by far. His performance at PGA Championships, he did top 15 at Southern Hills, but you see, pretty poor. 55th last year, a couple of missed cuts, 64th. So, this was by far and away his best performance in a major. Tommy, Cam Smith, Bryson, Xander, Zalatoris, Hatton, and Cam Young were your top 10. Again, what do all these players have? They move it. Scotty moves it off the tee. Ober is one of the most elite off the tee players I've seen. I can't call him the best, but he is quite elite off the tee. Morikawa, more so about accuracy. So if his irons aren't dialed in, it could be a little bit of struggle because he's clearly the outlier in this group. He's the shortest off the tee of these players. Homa moves it. Fleetwood. Cam Smith moves it just fine. Everybody knows about Bryson. I don't think people realize, even though Rory was continuously 40, 50 yards ahead of Xander at the Wells Fargo, Xander was third, at least leading into the final round. Xander was third in driving distance at the Wells Fargo. I mean, that's just how far and away Rory was just bombing this week. Zalatoris moves it. Hatton isn't the shortest. He's not long or longest either, but he can move it a little bit. Cam Young has got tremendous length. Moving down into the rest of the top 20, Patrick Reed, much more like a Colin Morikawa player in the sense that he relies on his short game and scrambles out his pars, which is another recipe for success. Cam Davis moves it. Kirk Binion moves it. Højgaard moves it. So, these players they move it off the tee. They're generally elite off the tee anyway, but they have some prodigious distance. So that was the first thing I kind of noticed whenever I was doing some quick research today around the Masters. Sorry, my camera is fuzzing out a little bit. See if I can't get it to... There we go. To focus. There's a look at some of the form from the past few PGA champions. We'll bring us back into the early look file and the statistics from PGA championships. That's going to be do it for the show this evening. A little bit shorter, especially since we didn't go through the course breakdown on Fantasy National. If you don't understand why, make sure you rewatch the show. I explain it a couple of times at the beginning. But yeah, that's going to be the show this evening. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, watching, listening, supporting the channel, liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. Love what I do, taking an in-depth look at sports statistics, mainly golf and baseball, but mostly golf. Taking a look at sports statistics, giving you a statistician and data analyst's view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. Be on the lookout for the research tomorrow. And make sure you let me know either in the comments of the show or over on social media. Let me know how your Wells Fargo went, how your Myrtle Beach Championship went, and all that good stuff. Be on the lookout for the research tomorrow. For all the wagers that you made this past week for the Wells Fargo and the Myrtle Beach Classic, for all of the DFS contests you played for the Wells Fargo and the Myrtle Beach Classic. And until I see you tomorrow night For the Data Dive Show, may all your bets be profitable.